Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, we're back. Good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to today's Kinto Spaces. We do this every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. UTC. Never miss our spaces because we talk about DeFi, exchanges, blockchain, crypto, and everything in between. I want to welcome some of our speakers. We're getting people up on stage as we speak. If you are a scheduled speaker, please make sure to send in a request. We'll pull you up and have an interesting discussions. We got a great show. Interesting questions, actually. We've got a great show for you today. We are talking about probably one of the most important things in today's market, which is trust. One of the core cornerstones, I want to say, for Web3, because trust can be understood in many different ways. Um, to a degree, every single person in Web3 conceptualizes trust on their own terms, which can be confusing. So let's try to unpack it and see where we arrive. We've got some cool panelists I'm happy to welcome on the stage. Mr. Suede from
Hey, good to
Suede
be here.
Johnny.
Yeah, that either
How's it going?
works. No, really good to be here. This is a great topic, and I think I've actually made a few videos about.
I'm sorry, I accidentally muted the space. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I actually made a few videos about this. I think trust is a non-negotiable in this space. When you're starting from a smaller level, so we'll unpack it, but I think it's a really great conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. It is a good topic and can't wait to hear what you guys think. And one verse has joined us as well. And one, happy to have you this week. We've had a good number of conversations. Happy to have you here as well. How's it going?
Thank you so much, man. You're right. We've had a couple of great conversations, and I actually absolutely love this one because it's a strong part of why Web3 works, trust. So, yeah, looking forward to the conversation and seeing how it goes.
Thank you, sir. That's what we do here. We boost and try to encourage an open dialogue on what some of the concepts in Web3 that bug us, that bug me specifically, mean and how we should deal with them. This is one of them. I try to ask people on our space, and I try to, come up with topics specifically tailored to what I would listen to, what actually interests me, what I think is somewhat of an unanswered questions in the space. So let's figure this out. We got a newcomer to the space, AI layer community. Interesting naming. Hello there. How's it going?
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hello
Tell
everyone.
us a little bit about yourself.
So I go by Commando and I lead business development at AI Layer, the very first Bitcoin layer 2 focused on scaling decentralized AI infrastructure. We're combining Bitcoin's robust security with the computational needs of AI to provide a scalable and modular infrastructure that supports a wide range of AI services. At AI Layer, we seamlessly merge the raw security of Bitcoin with the flexibility of EVM compatible smart contracts to help developers deploy AI native apps in a permissionless and composable environment. I'm really excited to tune into this space and share my thoughts on what trust really means in Web3 today. Thank you, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks for having me here.
sir. Thanks for joining Web3 Trust. One hell of an interesting conversation. Absolutely. We got Treble, Mr. Rob, with us today. How's it going, Rob?
Hey, GM. Yeah, thanks for having me today. And then again, I'm Rob, one of the co-founders of Treble. We're the first V4 DEX on base. We have full scale aggregation capability, various automation tools, and this week we're releasing our long-awaited limit orders upgrade along with our Elvis AI agent embedded into our website, so people can just jump in there and interact with all of our smart contracts through that. I'm very stoked about this conversation today. Trusted Web3 is a very important factor. I think the beautiful thing about Web3 and blockchain overall is that this technology, the technology overall, can be trustless in ways where you can be your own custodian. You have all these codes that are made in a way where you don't necessarily have to trust people, and essentially the trustless aspect is what makes trust in Web3 actually go around, because the best way of having trust is not actually you don't need to need the trust. You just have to have the trust based on the contract's allowances.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I want to talk about and more. We got Max from X Rocket. Max, how are you feeling today?
Hey, GM, everybody. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're Audible and Amazon as well. Go ahead.
Cool. So, yeah, my name is Max. I'm community manager at XRocket. And I want to remind you that XRocket has a first full-fledged CEX on Telegram, where allow you to trade, receive, and send crypto easily and without not leaving Telegram. And also where we launched web platform as well. So feeling great. Thanks for having me. I'm curious about today's space and ready to share some minds. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. We'll get a couple of more speakers joining us as we speak. Marcelo with the Soulbound team. How's it going, Marcelo?
Yo, what's up, everybody? Yes, beautiful day. This is the last space of the day for me. We've been on quite a few today. Yeah, quick introduction. My name is Marcello, head of spaces here at Soulbound. We are a Web3 streaming platform. We've got all kinds of stuff. We got Streamify. We got prediction markets. Blah, blah, blah. We've got prediction markets with Gamblefy. We've got some AgentFi stuff coming as well, and we got a TGE coming up very soon. So lots of cool stuff. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you for having us. And I think this is another beautiful topic. Big Daddy Phil, trust in Web3. Very, very important.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Who do we have left? Pai3. Pradeep, over to you, sir.
Thank you, GM, everyone. My name is Pradeep. I'm the CEO of Pai3 Network. We are a trusted AI container network designed to serve professionals in the legal, medical, finance community to run purpose-built agents. And we allow the agents to run in the container where the data never leaves the container. And the problem we are solving is the fundamental problem with any SaaS-based AI, which is privacy, transparency, compliance. So our mission is to become the cell phone intelligence infrastructure for millions of doctors, lawyers, dentists, chiropractors, and more importantly, to power this economy in an open, trustless, permissionless way so that everybody can see the behavior of the agent, who's publishing, who's using, what data is being used to train, what nodes ran the inference, how the inference was orchestrated and chained between models, and everybody gets paid fairly and immediately. So tokenization to us is a fundamental attribute of a trustless and therefore trustworthy economy, which then flows back to today's topic of trust in Web3. Some really great speakers, as always, you have assembled. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation and learning from all of you. So thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining. We do have a lot of great speakers. Last but certainly not least, of one of them is FXDX. Welcome, Purple Arc. How are you feeling?
We good. We're pretty stoked to be back at this amazing Twitter space again with Kinto and Growthy hosting. As always, super excited. FXGX is building the next generation of perp dexes where we're trying to bridge TradFi and we're trying to bridge DeFi. So a lot of smart speakers here. So looking forward to what actually happens and how code is law and how we can improve trust as well. So let's just get started.
Absolutely. Let's get started indeed. Let's get this thing rolling. We're going to have a conversation about trust. Before we dive in, Hannah, why don't you tell us a couple of words about Kinto, and we can safely roll.
Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. So really briefly, I'm Hannah. I'm the COO at Kinto. Very quickly on what Kinto is, I think most people who've joined our spaces before are aware. Kinto is the modular exchange, which offers the best of what you would expect from a centralized exchange and DeFi, with other components mixed in, like the ability to hold equities and commodities. It's chain abstracted, enforced account abstraction, out of the box insurance. So a lot of stuff, and we have a huge emphasis on safety and trust. So a really great spaces for us to be talking about with everyone.
For sure. Absolutely. And that emphasis needs to be underlined and highlighted. With that being said, we got a couple of more speakers join as well. We'll get to you, ladies and gents. Let's dive into today's topics and today's questions. One thing I want to ask you guys, because of the number of sheer number of speakers, we only have one slot left. Please raise your hand if you have something to say. I'll call on you and you'll be able to provide your take, just because we want to keep this as equal and even as possible. What does trust mean in Web3 today, where we have gone from, we've been through a lot of cycles nowadays. And today, what do we mean when we say trust? Is it the code? Is it the community? Is it reputation or something entirely different? Treble, over to you.
All right. Well, as I was saying earlier, the biggest thing about trust in Web3 is that all your code, first and foremost, has to be audited, and the audits have to be public. And not only that, is it also helps if you have open source libraries of a lot of your code as well. Not everything needs to be open source, but the things that are not open source need auditing even more so, with those public audits and everything, because in the end of it all, the idea of Web3, the idea of blockchain, is that you don't need trust. It's supposed to be trustless in a way where anybody can, come on Treble, provide their liquidity, and they need to be able to know that, hey, I can come back and I can withdraw my liquidity. And the only way to do that, to know this information for sure, is to be able to look through our audits, look at the contract. I mean, yes, you can just come in and use all the contracts, with blind trust and not really think about it. But there's so much malicious code out there, and over the past, especially the last bull market, whenever you had these fair launches for dexes coming out left and right, all of a sudden you have these rugs that are basically programmed into the code. So you do have to make sure that you do your own research when you interact with these protocols. But as a project, if you want the community, if you want people to trust you, you need to provide the proper documentation, you need to have the proper audits. And then, even if you are not front facing with your community, as we're not, it is important to still have KYC done with a lot of your partners, so that you can implement tools and features into your protocol that are actually legitimate and that have a track record of success. So it's the code, the smart contract audits are ultimately the most important thing. And then if your code is done in a way where everything's transparent, then the team, the community doesn't actually have to trust you, because everything's on chain, everything's there. And then as far as that goes, you don't have to actually you can just be honest with your community. But if for some reason you're saying something that's not true, it's all going to be right there in code and transparent, or it's supposed to be, at least. That's my take on that.
Absolutely. It is need to be communicated well what we actually mean by trust, and how do we enable this trust um, to be reacted on or reacted upon, um, when we exercise this right to trust. And it sounds weird, but it is a right to trustless systems, right? That's the goal, that's the name of the game. Soulbound, I think you were up next. Go ahead, Marcel.
Let's go. Love the points from the previous speaker. I'm gonna take a different angle. I think, just specific, solely from like the team side of things. I think, so the beauty about like Web3 is that everything's on chain, everything's public, transparency, right? I think that's huge. I think on another front, I'm also fascinated by teams on how they roll when it comes to communication. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to be transparent about everything. I don't think that's a good idea either. But you see time and time again a lot of projects that keep their community in the dark, or they'll promise deadlines, or launch dates and all this stuff, and then that doesn't get fulfilled, and then that leads to other issues, and then it's like, just be transparent. I mean, first of all, I don't think you should set any dates for anything, because you know how it is with tech, that it isn't always definite. But what I would say is, when teams are transparent and just honest, and I think that really goes a long way, right? I think teams feel that, especially in a space that there's so much going on. I do feel like when a team is transparent, when they're honest, when they communicate with the community what the heck is going on, even if it's not good news, right? I think that's important too. If something went wrong or the team made a mistake, own up to it. Be honest, because that speaks volumes, right? Because if the worst thing is if your community finds out that you lied about something or you were dishonest about something else, well, trust gets broken really quick, and then you gotta build it back up, right? At least if you quote unquote fucked up on something, but you owned up to it and you were honest. I could at least speak for myself. I think that speaks volumes about a person's character, right? And at least knowing that even during the hardest times, they're still going to be transparent and honest about what's going on, then that's somebody I want to support, because no matter what they say at this point, I could have trust in them, right? So I think that's super important. Another piece, I don't think it's the end all be all. I think maybe a few years ago, um, we didn't care as much. I do think now, though, it's not the end all be all, but I do think it does make a difference when teams are doxxed, right? If you're able to see who's behind the team, who's legit and who's not, like, nowadays, I think, and again, it's not always the case, but oftentimes, if a team isn't doxxed, automatically, I'm a little bit skeptical. I wonder why they're doxxed, right? Why don't they want to show their faces, or at least a few team members public about it? Is the founder public? So I've met teams that certain members are doxxed and others aren't, which that's fine. At least we could point the finger and be like, okay, well, we know who's running this project right here. So I think in many cases, it does speak volumes, especially after everything that we've seen in this industry. People do have a lot of lack of trust. I'm very skeptical about everybody. Like, I'm a very trustful person, and we'll get along, but I'm gonna want to get to know you first before doing any type of partnerships or things of that nature. So I do think it speaks volumes when founders are actually docs, because I mean everything's on the line at this point, and you're able to know who's there, and also you're able to see their track records and stuff. You're able to see their past. It's crazy. I mean, I'm gonna get very quickly into story time, but what I thought, one of my quote unquote friends who was actually doxxed, he had launched a project, and then months later, apparently he ended up rug pulling, and then he just disappeared. And I'm like, fuck, you think you know somebody until you don't. And then turns out, all I needed was really to throw his name into Google, and then, I would have found a few things on him, right? So I do think it speaks volumes when somebody, and even at that, somebody could be fully doxxed and still be doing some shady shit. So just imagine how much more that could happen if somebody isn't. So, anyways, I know it's a sensitive topic. Not everybody wants to be docs, but I do think when someone is, at least it gives you the freedom to look into them and see, their track records. And if they have a good track record, then that speaks volumes too. So, yeah, just some thoughts on my end.
I think it's definitely important to docs with your partners in any financial aspects of things, such as launch pads and and VCs and everything, your auditors and everything like that. But publicly doxing in front of your whole, Telegram community per se, especially when you're a startup in DeFi, can end up resulting in some horror stories. So,
Well,
if you
if you
guys
are a founder, though, you do have some sort of responsibility. For example, if the people you are trying to sell something don't aren't required to trust you, meaning that everything's on chain, everything's in the code, so they don't necessarily doesn't really matter to them or doesn't make a difference for them. Sure, but if you are using the term "trust me, bro," at least at some point in your customer cycle, you need to dox. And that's my personal view, because if you want me to trust you, I want to be able to know who you actually are. that's why I think
That's a good point. If you're using
you
the
know what I
word
mean?
trust and you're selling completely, like if you're telling people trust me, trust me, trust me, but you're not actually
Yep.
showing anything trustable, that's a great point.
But it is implicit in most projects, especially early on in NFT projects. What I've personally witnessed was huge, insanely huge projects, like entire, I don't know, millions and tens of millions of worth project, millions and millions, as Trump would say, of worth of dollars were literally using that term. The founders would go on a podcast or a space and they'd be like, dude, we are delivering, bro, whatever, blah, blah, blue, blue. But at the end of the day, I mean, at the end of the year, they would be gone. I've seen entire organizations plummet and crumble to their death because the founder wasn't able to deliver. Maybe they were doxxed, but they weren't able to deliver. So I don't know. Investors might think twice investing in their project next time. But
Just to
it is a
just to
slippery
jump
slope.
in here, we've
Sure,
seen
go ahead.
people raise tens of thousands of dollars too. I know
Mhm.
tens of millions, thousands, forget thousands,
Yes.
tens of millions, if not even some crazy situations, 100 million, and it's just like, I get it though. At the same time, there's some crazy shit going on in the world. Not everybody wants to have their name out, but I would have to say, like, look, if you're gonna be putting that much on your back and carrying all that responsibility, I do kind of think it is a good idea to be out there because, accountability is huge. But I get it. Not everybody wants to be doxxed, but I do think in the conversation of trusting people, I would trust somebody more if I knew who they were. That's what I think.
Well, and also, I mean, if you are, look, the founders of Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is still considered to be the biggest NFT project ever made, are doxxed. So if they can be doxxed, you can sure dox your damn ass. Okay, it's not like somebody's gonna steal you and request a ransom. If that is the case, if you are afraid of that, you got millions of dollars. Hire a bodyguard. I mean, if you want to create a project that's going to last generations and make you millions and if not billions of dollars, just get a bodyguard. I mean, I don't know, people are buying Porsches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis. I think they can afford a bodyguard or two, not to be taken. But yeah, I don't know. It's I can't really justify a founder that's willing to tell their community to trust them, not being doxxed. However, it doesn't really mean that once you dox, everything's fine. There are, AI generated projects that even generate LinkedIn profiles for their, supposed team members, which don't exist. So there are many, many ways to avoid that as well. I want to hear what Johnny thinks and then bring it back to our very own Hannah. Go ahead, Johnny.
I think I agree with most of the things that were said. I think one of the great elements of Web3 is the fact that it's built, I think if done properly in a way that there is trust minimized at the very least, but there really should be no reliance upon trust for the things to happen in whichever, contractual agreement you have. And by contractual, I mean smart contracts. They should be able to work without there being the intervention of anybody in particular. And I can say in regards to doxing, I have been, I doxed myself. I knew the risks that would come with that when I did it. I've gotten a multitude of death threats and extortion attempts and things like that, and that comes with the territory. But I think that it comes down to if we know what we're getting into when we get into this space, we know that that's going to come probably regardless if we've been in crypto for any period of time. And it's incumbent upon us as founders to build that trust with the community. I mean, we are working with black eyes from 1,000 projects that have done wrong by their communities. And I think trust ultimately comes down to action. And it's a big reason why, we came out during the AI agent hype, and we're not an AI agent. We have tons of AI agents that we use to leverage for certain, different, more as conduits, but um, we differentiate ourselves and actually say these words, we need to do something, and we don't and it's that I think trust is an action, and if you believe in what you're doing, having the remainder 47% is going to be, beyond adequate, or, the couple of percent the team has, once, we reach the levels that we believe we will be. So, it aligns incentives. I don't think that needs to be done, obviously, in every case. And in retrospect, maybe it wasn't the best move as far as, token strategies, but yeah, I think, trust oftentimes is an action word. And I think that also there shouldn't really need to be much of a conversation around it. And getting that off the table allows for a better collaborative sort of experience, because you're not constantly thinking, well, what do I have to do to protect myself? Because you know that that's inherent in the code. And the last thing I'll say, just a little pushback on audits. I think every time that I've been involved with a DeFi protocol that's been exploited, I think it was Certic audited, and through the roof. And we've used audits, of course, too. But I don't think by any means are they enough to really ensure. I think the code must be, at the very least, battle tested for some period of time to really feel with any degree of comfort about it. And that's my take on it. But I appreciate the conversation, level the viewpoints.
Yeah, it is definitely a really, really good conversation, and the theory states that a smart contract is between an algorithm and the person, the user, and there should be the least amount of dealings with or trust going on. However, in theory, that sounds great. Do we require a lot of knowledge on the user side for this to actually come about? What certain type of knowledge do they need to have is the actual question. Hannah, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that ties really well into kind of my perspective on it, which there's two different things. Like, what should trust in Web3 mean today? Which I feel like should be all these things like code, audits, great docs, transparency, communication. And then there is, what do I think a lot of people in the ecosystem look for, which unfortunately I think code is bottom of the list, which is like very, very sad, because that's what, for me, what makes blockchain so great. But people either don't understand how to check the code, or they don't understand, or they don't care to look because they want to build whatever narrative they want to build in their heads. So I think a lot of trust right now is more reputation, community, and overall sentiment based, rather than actual tangible things that can be proved on the blockchain. We've actually seen this firsthand at Kinto. So I would say we are radically transparent. Like, everything, we will give our community an excess of information. But we have things where people are like, oh, this happened or this didn't happen, and we're like, well, we published every wallet that did XYZ. All of these wallets are KYC'd, and people either don't go and look or don't care, which I think is just like really unfortunate for the overall ecosystem, that people aren't willing to do their due diligence when things are very obviously on chain. I think in terms of trust as well, and something that I feel like I've seen more this cycle, which is really, really sad, is overall token price being synonymous with trust, when we have seen time and time again that token price has nothing in, well, it should have more impact on the actual trustworthiness of a product, but often it doesn't. I see many things that I think are undervalued with their token, NFA, but like, even the ARB token, ETH, like, I think they're undervalued relative to the product. We don't see that so much when you look at like more traditional setups with like stocks in Web 2 space. So I think that kind of like falsehood that token price being high gives a product more trustworthiness, I think is a little bit dangerous with where we are right now, combined with the fact that like a lot of users aren't like doing their due diligence, and just kind of going along with overall sentiment. And then just to touch on the doxing thing, obviously all of the team at Kinto are doxed, and we're happy to be, but I do understand those who don't want to be doxed as well. Like, a lot of people know me well, know like my brother's been working in the space for a long, long time as one of these diehard degens who will never dox. So I get both angles, but I do think there comes a point where it's like, okay, maybe for your community it is the best thing to dox. Yeah, because you can't just keep saying trust me, bro, the whole time.
Absolutely. And that is the thing. We need to be extra careful, especially when there are crazy things happening around in this space. Actually, I think FXDX had his hand raised first. Forgive me if I'm mistaken. Go ahead, FX.
I'm just really interested with the talks that whether devs should dox themselves, the team should dox themselves. But my point of view is completely different, especially of learning from the past. We've seen people dox themselves, especially Quadriga X, the Canadian exchange. The founder had doxed himself, being the pioneer in Bitcoin in Canada, and we saw how it went down. He literally went missing. And after that, just to add on to that, uh, Satoshi himself isn't doxed. So the question isn't about dox or undoxing yourself. The the real point we're trying to make over here is how good is your project? How good is your protocol? How good is the narrative that you're building? How good is the uh, operations? I mean, everything. That's what Web3 and DeFi and everything crypto is about. It's not about the person building it. It's about the protocol. It's about what they're getting to the plate. So just my two pieces of thought on what everyone else has said.
For sure, and indeed, and auditability is also not a final statement, so to speak. And let's hear your take.
All right, thank you very much. I think we've touched a lot of things in this topic, really. But I think for me, trust encompasses everything. I feel like it's everything joined together, right? It's relationship, it's you being docs, it's reputation, it's backing, right? It's your utility, it's your token generation. Every single thing works hand in hand for trust to be able to come in, right? Your communication with your community, how do you refer information, right? Everything works hand in hand. If I come to a project, right, especially for NFT projects, right, and I see any little discrepancies, something is not adding up, right, whether it's through the communication, whether it's through the relationships, affiliations, whatever, that trust starts to dwindle, right? Because I want everything to align, right? So it's not just one thing. It's not. It can be. Let's say you being doxxed. You can be doxxed, and I still do not trust you because I do not know what you can do, right? There's a lot of projects that the founders have been doxxed, right? And they still raw do whatever they want to do, right? So I feel like it's the whole thing in general, and that's what we're trying to do with N1 Verse, right? Is having everything work hand in hand in line so that when you see every single thing, right? There's no space, there's no problem in it, right? That is from who we affiliate with, right? How we communicate, how are we docs, right? What are the utilities we're bringing, right? Who do we talk to? What are we building on? What chain are we building on, right? How is the community? Is it full of farmers? Is it full of builders? All these things work hand in hand to make trust possible. Because if it does not, right, and a person, little things make human lose trust, right? It could be the littlest thing, and I do not trust this project anymore. And it might be something that you don't think that is important, right? But to me, it's important, and those things, right, can make me just default from the project. So I think everything in general, right? If you can make these things work together, so that the community, right, build the trust gradually, because trust does not just come immediately. There has to be repetition. What are they doing right that you're seeing consistently, right? That is giving you the trust to want to be there. What is a certain thing that you see and you're like, you know what, I love this project, I trust this project, I want to be a part of this project. So these things work hand in hand, and it's not just one thing.
Exactly. In a permissionless system, how do we differentiate between freedom and chaos? Where should trust come in that equation? Pai, I'm sure you have a lot of good educated thoughts. Go ahead.
So I want to bring a different dimension, and trust is a very important topic, not just for Web3, but for us as humanity. Many years ago, I used to run an organization in a top level technical role, a C-suite function, where we were collecting and managing and servicing practically every American from their healthcare perspective. And it was a team that I would proudly work with again. Nobody was there as an evil person. They were highly competent, highly motivated, high integrity people, 1,000-person plus team. But we collected data from every single claim or bill submitted by a doctor on behalf of you as a patient, and it was our responsibility to keep it safe. And we did until we didn't. Recently, that organization leaked or was hacked, and 155 million Americans' data was distributed on the dark web. Everybody's medical history, their prescription history, very sensitive information that should never be stolen has been stolen. Now, do you trust me? I ran a good organization. I did my best to build a really good infrastructure. We spent billions a year to harden our infra, but we screwed up. Now, I wasn't there when that happened, but if you think about it, it really isn't about trust. Yeah, you can know me. My name was all over the CNN and whatever back then, but it didn't stop this trust from being violated. So I think the real question here is, are we trusting human beings? We're all fallible, all going to make mistakes. Somebody's going to screw up in the DevOps or somewhere, and somebody's going to find a way into your fortress. So what we really need is technology that makes it unnecessary to trust people. We shouldn't have to care who the founder is or is not. What we should be caring about is, does the tech work? Is the chain well truly decentralized? Is a smart contract really being used sufficiently by enough people and being independently verified beyond just a few companies auditing your smart contract? I think the whole value, the reason I got into Web3 in the first place 8 years ago is because I got tired of the guy who people trusted till they didn't, and they shouldn't. Is in the next guy in my chair could be an asshole and could actually sell that data, although he would go to prison undoubtedly, but he could do it. So the problem with the systems we have today in the world, be it the banking system, be it the healthcare system, be it the government system, be our voting system, is that we are asked to trust people running it. And what blockchain does, in its purest sense, is says, don't trust me, trust the tech. We all know that, right? So I think what I'm trying to say in a very simple sense, having lived through this, being the trust bearer, and also being the party who ultimately, in some way, shape, or form, contributed to 250 million people having their medical records gone out on the web. 20 years later, but 20 years ago, I was running that shop. So the point I'm making is, don't trust the person. It doesn't even matter who that person is. The founder could be, ex-president of the country. It doesn't matter. People are fundamentally fallible. What we need is tech that we can trust. Trustless environments are the only things we should trust. And that's really why I believe firmly that trust in Web3 is a technical construct. It's a fundamental construct, and it should not rely upon my skill, my dedication, or my intentions in how I handle your information. And that's part of the reason why I believe that containerization of the kind that many projects like Pai3 are doing, where data never leaves your custody for you to be able to service by whatever agent or whatever technology, that self-custody of data, that no having to zero trade-off between custody of data and ability to access a product or a service, that's our promise as a industry. And I'm very fervently believer of trust is always misplaced when it's placed in human beings. It must be placed in the blockchain.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said that better myself, sir. What an amazing take. I mean, that is the main issue here, that we shouldn't trust people. I think we definitely have the technology for it. It's the practical and actual implementation of that technology that matters. I think Rob had his hand raised first, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to. I love the previous take. I just kind of wanted to add a little bit more on top of that. So, love the concept of if the founders docs doesn't mean the protocol won't fail. And I mean, and when you go towards the centralized direction, I mean, it's going to get even crazier. And amidst the previous take, three names came up to mind: Sam Bankman-Fried, Alex Mashinsky, and Do Kwon. Those three names came up. I'm sure most of you guys know who they are. Alex Mashinsky represented Celsius, and they Celsius and Nexo were really big competitors. and I can't remember. I think it was Andre something, but the guy that's the CEO of Nexo is an old politician from Bulgaria, and they ran a similar concept where you deposit, single asset deposits, you earn yield, and you don't really know what they're doing in the back end. So the only way you find out is if there was, if the protocol failed, is if there was a bank run and you can't pull your money out. Nexo is still alive and well. Celsius is not. Alex Mashinsky was a billionaire from telecom stuff that's now going to prison. Same thing with Sam Bankman-Fried. I mean, they were investing into, they were giving money to the Democratic Party. They were meeting with presidents, Zelensky, and they were doing all the stuff. I mean, honestly, probably the most doxed person you could ever meet. And they were also having, drug-fueled orgies on the islands at the same time. And great, we all know that it happened. Does that actually help anybody that lost their money with FTX? No. This is why we're here building DeFi, because that's crap. And then the final take is Do Kwon. Now he built the decentralized protocol, and there was one speaker said something earlier about how even the audits don't matter, even the code doesn't matter sometimes, and that was a perfect example of that. I ended up watching Luna pump to high hell last bull market.
Oh man, are you rugging?
Me, I ended up getting. Do you guys hear me? I ended up having a phone call and I ended up losing my connection. Do you hear me?
Now we can hear you. You're
Okay,
back. Go ahead.
perfect. Yeah, so Do Kwon launched, the whole Luna aspect of things. I never touched it. But I ended up having, FOMO at the end. Still never touched it, but I did have mad FOMO, thinking, oh wow, Luna's pumping so much, it's just not stopping. It's so crazy. But do you guys remember? Do you guys actually know what the UST, Terra, Terra Luna's stablecoins algorithm was? It was literally like, hey, we can take your Luna token, and if it's up so much and you want to profit, you can either sell it for USDT, USDC, or just USD somehow and take profit, or you can burn your Terra Luna and create a UST out of thin air associated with the value of the Terra Luna that you burned. It was the craziest system, not backed by anything real at all. Like that was, I mean, I firmly believe that algorithmic stablecoins are possible. That one was horseshit, and I can't believe how much people fell into it. I can't believe Terra Luna got to billions, but that code was audited and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And people were still dumb enough to be like, yeah, I want to profit, without selling. So why would I want to sell my token when I can just burn it and then not cause sell pressure and then just make the stable coin out of thin air? And then Celsius, Alex Mashinsky, clearly he was so smart that they were like, oh yeah, UST, stake that UST, get 20% yield. But then at the same time, they were taking their users USDC and USDT, giving them 5% yield or something like that, and then turning that into UST and earning 20% on that, thinking that, oh wow, we're getting a 15% profit for Celsius, the company. And then their token actually way outperformed Nexo at that period of time, because Nexo wasn't doing this crap. And next thing you know, Nexo is alive and well. Alex Mashinsky's going to prison. And that's the thing. Without DeFi, you can't know what's happening on the back end of those contracts. That's why I'm so proud of our Nitro Strategies feature, that you can deposit your USDC or ETH, and then you can actually see what LPs are earning you before you withdraw it. So that's key to have those kinds of features. And I'm not saying centralized products, obviously Nexo is still okay. I like Nexo. They're coming back to US. They did something right. But you still don't know if they're failing without, until they actually fail. So it's one of those things where you don't need trust. You don't need to trust anybody. You just need to be able to use your product and know that the algorithm will not fail you. And that's it. Doesn't matter who the founder is, because anybody can just lie about something and run away to Cayman Islands. I mean, that's my take on that.
Well, absolutely. And the downside is that more of a paradoxical thing in Web3 is actually that specific aspect where everything moves with narratives, and narratives definitely shape the markets. How do we safeguard Web3 from being overtaken by hype and short-term thinking? Because founder-led marketing is one of the best working marketing strategies in the space. Even though we're saying we don't need to trust, we still end up trusting. That is the downside. And I wonder how we can change that. Die Network, over to you.
Yes. Um, for me, I think. The as like Pradeep just said, like just the formal like phrase that we always said in the Web3 is that trust equals with having the permissionless like is freedom, but it's also a test when you can see when everyone can build, launch, mint, and speak. How do we prevent that from turning into noise, scams, or like straight up like chaos? So the answer lies in like building trust layers that don't restrict like freedom but enhance the understanding. Because having the on-chain identities and verifiable like credentials just help a little bit in with the user that they will know who they are dealing with. But we have seen lots of projects like show their face like job face, but they also like still do the rocks not like directly. They do it by listing their tokens, but then like dropping down the charts. That's a way when you say to the user, "Oh, I already like list our tokens, but you guys like selling it, so I don't have like any responsible in this like situations." So that's a way where people still show their face, but they still scam you. So where do we have like the trust come from? I think from the decentralized like um identity like frameworks that allow people to build like reputations without like compromising the privacy. Also for the transparent like incentive like structure that align with the long term like behavior with the community goals. So and maybe we can also hope that in the future we have the intelligence agents and toolings that can help user when like they navigate the complexity, not by like restricting the choice but like enhance the clarities. You can really have an agents that when you pay a purchase in and ask them to do some of the like on-chain data like verifying, they can give you some of the context and signal to help you with more like informed to decide to whether put yourself on the project, not just like the raw access that you can only see it by your eyes. That's my take.
Yeah, and some of the leverage that we have, I always say to people, and this is not financial advice, it's more of a strategic advice, I want to say, because I say to people, you know what, when you are curious about trusting a person or a project, see where they're operating from. And this is not me being racist. This is legislatively speaking. Um, it's important. For example, when a project is made within the EU, when it works from Austria or Germany or Liechtenstein or Switzerland, they have such strict rules. Whenever they release tokens, whenever they release any kind of coins, they can either do securities or utility tokens. And they have to always be MiCA compliant. MiCA is a regulation that is enforced throughout the European Union, making it possible for you to sue any type of project that tries to rug you. So that puts an extra layer of pressure on the founder not to rug. With SBF and Duquan and other ruggers, so to speak, it's a little bit more challenging. But that was the big case. We have countless of small cases, right? People that have rugged countless of times without any sort of any type of consequence. And so that is the issue here. That's what we're trying to discuss: the trust, the absence of trust, and the need for trust. AI layer. I think you had your hand raised next. Let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. According to Sir Pradeep, he said if we have high level of tech, like high level of tech is just what we need to keep things secure. That's actually true, but it actually means trusting the code, the smart contracts, self executing and open for anyone to verify. But As we keep advancing in tech, hackers or anyone just they also keep advancing in tech too, in their own way too. We might keep learning to secure things like like security measure, keep advancing in security measure, but hackers too are like they keep advancing in their own type of like to find vulnerabilities and in everything we do so. Like where everyone actually witnessed the recent hack on Bybit, you know, but we also how the CEO openly came out and explained the situation, how they are handling it, and gave assurance to their users. You know, firstly, the attack happened, but as the attack happens, we all seen like millions and millions of dollars being wheeled out to other exchanges because people were like fearing for the for their tokens, money, the- being vulnerable to act. But we also have the CEO openly came out and explained the situation and how they are handling it. The event alone could have caused Bybit a significant portion of their entire business because events like that are where trust easily collapse. But the same approach to handling it was a very game changer. It brought about collective response and even public sympathy. So according even like recently, same thing happened to us. I think it was when RTG was closed. Once open up to a coordinated attack on our Discord and Telegram community at once. But they actually tested our resilience, but with the way we responded, fast coordination, transparency, and restoring full operations in 3 hours. That I think that endorses more community trust than any marketing campaign would have done so. So what I'm trying to say is like trust is very important alone, but that even alone could have like scattered many things. What we like build our energy so much on, like everything just shattered in one piece. I'm actually trying
Yeah,
to say
that's
trust.
the yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
oh, so thank you. Trust in Web3 is
Yeah.
actually like not about the code only, but the community
Mhm.
and the reputation is all working together accordingly. You have
Exactly.
they keep
Exactly.
working
That's the
hand in hand.
point.
Yeah. So
That is the point. It is the engine that drives your decisions. Whether you invest in a project, whether you want to trust the founder, whether you trust the token itself, that it's going to go pumping, it's going to 100x your bags, which some people do actually trust that, weirdly enough.
actually,
But that is the point, right? It is the community is a huge aspect of that. And maybe in the next space, we'll talk about that as well, because that is a very, very important um, conversation point, AI layer. So thanks for mentioning that. Trust in the community is some sort of next level shenanigans that we need to account as well as builders and founders of Web3. Hannah, we're almost out of time. Let's hear your take and we can safely wrap up today's session. You're muted, by the way.
Thanks, Phil. So yeah, basically, I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about jurisdictions where people are based, but I think a lot of those decisions actually come from a lack of legal and legislative clarity. So some foundations and development entities are in jurisdictions that are more like friendly to them, not necessarily because they're planning anything nefarious. I think hopefully as those things ease up, hopefully soon, I think we'll see a definite change in that direction. But in terms of like, how do we safeguard Web3 from being overtaken by hype and short term thinking? It's a mixture of maximizing the technological capabilities, which is why a lot of people are building in Web3 that enable the trust to be there, but also that participants in the space, like we as participants in the ecosystem, demand that this happens. We demand that these things happen, that they're locked into contracts, that we understand how to check things, and that we do our own due diligence. Um, and then one other thing, I know we're talking a little bit about communities and things like that, is also like, who are we trusting that we're listening to? Is it somebody that we trust just because they have a lot of followers on X, but they don't really understand what they're talking about? I think that's also a really big part of doing our own due diligence, and seeing like, okay, why am I trusting this person? Am I buying into like a FOMO social hype up rather than an actual product hype up? What's the track record like on delivery if you can't understand code? Do the founders and team members deliver when they say they will? I think, you know, there's a lot we can all be doing and demanding from projects that will overall improve the trust that's there. And the trust is not just to protect existing participants in the ecosystem. The trust will also help the overall credibility of Web3, which will subsequently like help a flow of money from TradFi and people in retail who are currently still scared to come in because, you know, of all the kind of horror stories they've heard. So I think it's, you know, we need to work on it as participants in the ecosystem to make sure that we are, you know, safeguarding Web3 from being overtaken by hype, but also demanding that we're shaping the space in the way where like we can actually build more trust.
I wish more people listen to what you have to say, Hannah, and what everybody else has to say in this space. I really wish. Sometimes it feels like Web3 exists just in a bubble, and nothing outside of Web3 exists. Sometimes people think like that. I see people on my timeline as if they don't really live in the real world. They don't spend actual money. I don't know. There are rules to be made. There are rules to be broken. There are rules to be tested and created by people building in the space. But integrity is something that never fades. On that beautiful note, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to conclude our space today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize if you hadn't gotten your chance to speak freely, because we are just there's a lot of us that want to provide opinions. Hopefully we'll be able to give you more time next week, because we do this every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. UTC. Make sure not to miss our spaces. Kinto out. We'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.